Hello and welcome to episode 8 of E30 M3 Recreation. I hope you're all enjoying the series thus far. It's been emotional. After the horrors uncovered in the last few episodes, things are looking brighter as Spencer starts tackling the task of building the shell back up and the E30 starts looking more like an M3 once again. Because the E30 is a monocoque body, even being bolted to a jig, it isn't enough support to prevent the body from going all floppy on us. So I'll hand you over to Spencer to explain what's required, because no one wants a floppy body.
We've been actually supporting the body and making all body supports before we finally remove the remainder of the original metal work. The body supports that we've been making are, you can see there's a rear strut brace now, which obviously my jig supports the actual top mounting position, but then the strut brace supports the actual inner wings from moving left to right. So now they're both supported, totally sandwiched together, cannot move whatsoever. The next support we had to do was underneath the car. You can see underneath the car itself, added two more supports. So the actual support there, just sitting underneath the chassis rails. That piece of steel is literally just sitting underneath the chassis rail. It's a nice snug fit, tight fit. The idea of that is so the front end can't sag upwards and allow the middle to drop. So the rear chassis rail now is supported, as well as the front bush mount and also the engine bed mount. So them two areas are supported. The middle support is this actual seat belt mounting point. So you can see this is where the seat belt mounts to the floor after it comes up the B pillar, from the top joint of the B pillar and then all the way down to the floor. There's a bolt comes through the floor. What we've utilised is that bolt that comes through the floor, and obviously bolt it from underneath and then run a beam across the actual jig itself. So there's no mountings for that. These two mounts are basically to stop the centre of the car sagging inwards whilst we remove the outer sill piece. So we've got to remove the outer sill skin all the way along from the braze joint at the front, which is there, all the way along to the back. So we're replacing those. So we decided to support the floor even more, just to make sure that everything's safe, strong, rigid. Then inside the car, you can see I've added diagonal bars in the door shuts. So the diagonal bars are to basically keep the door gap in shape. Once we remove this last piece of skin, so remove this last piece of skin up the actual B pillar and remove it here, and the same up the C pillar. Once we remove this last piece of skin all the way up here, the actual roof, the roof itself could drop down at the back. And the reason that is because when you remove these outer skins, which are the rear quarter, the remains of the rear quarter, you are left with a 0.8 mil thick piece of steel, which is hard to see the flex in that, but it's flexible. So that piece of steel all the way up, one skin would allow the roof to slowly sag if we didn't support it. So, and that would change the door gap itself. So as the roof sagged, the door gap would then go out of shape, and then the door wouldn't shut properly. So we support the actual door gap with two diagonal bars, and then inside you can see what I've done is built an actual framework which is mounted to the bottom floor of the car, either side, so that you can see again it's sat firmly at the bottom of the car. That then comes all the way up, and then where the seatbelt top mounts are, I've bolted through the seatbelt top mount B pillar points an angle iron either side, and then welded an angle iron from left to right of the car, so the car cannot now bulge inwards or outwards. So the roof, if the roof tries to move, there's no way it can bulge this inner steel. So the inner mountain steel, the 0.8mm steel, which I'm left with, can no longer bulge in or outwards. And then at the very top, you can see I've actually fully supported the roof. So I'm sitting up there on both inner structural mounts. So the inner structural mount for the outside skin, and the inner structural mount for the sunroof there and there. This angle iron is basically going to be supporting, it's bolted to this piece, and that's going to be supporting the roof from falling down, so it cannot sag down, this cannot bulge in and out. So now I can actually start to remove this framework which they cobbled together on the actual car, remove the outer sill skin along the bottom, remove the very outer sill skin all the way along, and then remove these remainders of the rear quarter panel and start to prep all my spot weld areas. So all these areas which are the remains of the original inner wheel arches all the way around, they need to come off. And then again, all these spot welds going all the way up here in the original window hole need to come off across where the braze joint is, so it's going to be re-brazed with a new panel. And then just to give you some sort of demonstration, you can see the outer sill skin. That is a brand new outer sill skin from BMW. We didn't go for the cheap eBay aftermarket items purely because the outer sill skin isn't just the outer sill. It feeds in behind the front of the sill, down there. There's a braze joint. Then it comes all the way along the sill and then steps back down and go in behind the rear quarter skin. So that step in here, this step in here actually feeds in behind the rear quarter skin and follows on as a secondary skin inside the inner sill. You can see how she steps in. So that step in and one continuous piece of steel all the way along gives the sill its strength. So the sill gains its strength from that one piece of steel attached to an internal one piece of steel, and then the rear quarter covers over that area. If you remember in the previous videos I talked about how they'd actually left the original rear quarter skin at the bottom. So the original rear quarter skin at the bottom is still there. You can see the actual braze joint through here, along there. So that braze joint is rear quarter skin, sill. And the reason I bought brand new sills which are complete is because of the amount of damage that exists there in that area is no longer strong enough, in my opinion, to be able to support the weight and the power of the car. So we're going to be replacing the whole outer sill skin, feeding into the rear quarter panel, behind the rear quarter panel, and also a brand new rear quarter panel on the outside. You can see the actual C-pillar now is unpicked. We've still got to do the actual braze joint at the very top, but that's no problem at all. And then also B-pillar, so the very braze joint at the very top just needs unpicking. But you can see that all the metal bars welded in are gone, all the little tag welds are gone, all the spot welds are unpicked now. Also the lower sill, so the lower part of the rear quarter panel is now off, removed, ready for us to gain access to the outer sill now. So the outer sill will be the next part that gets removed, and then obviously the new outer sill will go on, rear quarter will actually go on over top of that. So this side now, the passenger side, is ready for the sill to come off and the rear quarter to have its test fit. So we're getting there. Now started making progress onto the actual other side of the car. So started to cut stuff out. Also the bar at the bottom has been cut now, and just slowly unpicking all them little tag welds that they done. So I just want to make it clear, show you a little demonstration of the actual. So you can see that the C-pillar, that's the inner support, the inner skin. Now the inner skin obviously isn't very strong, to be quite honest. You can see this big sort of letterbox hole. That's there on all E30s, as well as the B pillar. And the B pillar in the skin, again, it's just a single layer of 0.8mm steel. And you can see the actual, I mean, you can see that whole steel part, look, it's just flexing around. And when I do that, it's actually dragging the roof with it. So that's what I mean when I say that the actual E30 shell is horrendously weak and, you know, wouldn't take much movement at all to be able to send it out of shape. So, and obviously he was dependent on that strength, same as this, you know, this part in here. It's just ridiculous. How can that support 300 horsepower as soon as you start squatting? I mean, what's going to happen? I mean, the only reason this part doesn't move at all is because we've obviously supported it, stopped the roof from squatting, so it cannot move. Next is the driver's side, and then test fit of the rear quarter panels. What we've done is removed all the original spot weld parts on this side of the car. So both sides of the cars, left and right now, have had all the spot weld inner tubs and all the spot weld original inner rear quarter parts removed now. All their box section is fully removed, and we have basically bolted these panels on to start lining them up tomorrow. So what I want to do next is bolt all the panels on in place and then line the door gaps, because the door gaps are out of line. So the previous people obviously adjusted the doors to suit the fiberglass. So I want to line the doors up, get the door gaps perfect, top and bottom, get the rear quarters in the right position, get everything bolted on like that, then measure the door gap along the bottom of the sill, all the way along the bottom of the door to the bottom of the sill, get the correct gap all the way along, and then start stripping stuff out. So I'm going to adjust the doors to fit correctly, and then the rear quarters to fit correctly after that. And then once everything's bolted on and fitting correctly, I will then remove all the rear panels once again and then start removing the sills. So I can be sure that when I weld the sills on and take the measurement off the bottom of the door, my lines and my gaps are all going to be perfect. Obviously these panels are just bolted on, but you can get a good idea of how nice the car is going to look with brand new metalwork. And then obviously the sills will be renewed as well. The inner tubs for the wheel arches should arrive end of next week. Very happy to see it look like a car again.
The E30 is definitely looking very nice with those new panels, wouldn't you agree? Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on the rest of the progress. Thank you for watching. Hello and welcome to Car Lube. In this episode, a BMW M6 blows its number plate clean off. This guy polishes his pipes very rapidly.
Right. No, you just polish away.
A Porsche 911 creates new music. And we take a look at